we happy plastic people under shiny plastic steeples with walls around our weakness and smiles that hide our pain? But the invitation's open to every heart that's been broken. Maybe then we'll close the curtain on our stained glass masquerade. Seeking the heart of God next on So What?
Hi, I'm Chris Dorman.
And I'm Don Waite.
Welcome back to So What. If you're not familiar with that lyric, it's this brand new grindcore band called Casting Crowns.
Yeah.
They describe church, frankly, for most of us.
Right.
C.S. Lewis said that history is the long, terrible story of man's struggle to find happiness apart from God. And that is what we do. And it is natural for us to do that. It's so natural we don't even realize we're doing it. But why? Why is it so natural for us to do it?
Well, because it comes from the very beginning of time, right? The first people did the very same thing. They did not trust God as their complete source of happiness, but Adam and Eve thought, you know what? There's something else I need to be happy. There's this other thing, this tree, the knowledge of good and evil. That's going to make me really happy. Right? So we've had this from the very beginning, Chris.
And inherent in Satan's temptation is that to be really happy, you have to disobey God.
Think about that. Think about that.
All sin really is about us trying to make ourselves happy apart from what God has commanded.
Yep.
It's no different. But because it is so natural, it is this really insidious, pernicious thing that we're not even aware of. We are consumed with dealing with sins that people can see, with pride, with anger, with lust, with alcoholism, with whatever it might be, frustration, impatience, whatever. We focus on those things, but behind all of them is a heart that is wicked.
Right.
So we deal with the outside, at least we think so. You know, when someone says something, I'm not going to react in anger, but inside I want to kill him.
Right. The Beatitudes.
The Beatitudes. And look at the Sermon on the Mount. You read the Sermon on the Mount, everything Jesus is talking about is the heart. But we don't look at the heart. We just look at the externals, and we focus on getting our externals right without worrying about the heart, and that's our problem.
That's right.
That is our problem. And so we never ever deal with our feelings of self-sufficiency and our feelings like we have to find happiness apart from God.
You know, so throughout my life, particularly when I was a younger man, you know, there were many times when I was self-protecting and seeking my happiness in music. Buying as much music as I could, learning as much as I could. I mean, going way beyond, so I could control the conversation, right? Reading the encyclopedia of heavy metal so that I knew everything about every band. Like,
who knew there was such
bands.
a thing?
You're like, dude, I knew such obscure bands, but I took great pride in that, right? Because I could control the conversation. It's like, what do you mean you don't know about whoever?
Right.
You know, so in buying the latest import from a band that I really didn't know either, but gosh, I was going to have it. And then, so I mean, this is how I found out about Voivod. I mean, these guys really aren't any good, really. But you know what? I had every Voivod album. Why? Because I could say I had every Voivod album and I could control the conversation.
People have asked me about preaching. Aren't you really uncomfortable when you're in the pulpit? Isn't it really nerve-wracking to be in front of the church and talking to people like that? And I go, are you kidding? No. That's easy. That's like riding a bike or falling out of bed. It's so easy for me.
Why?
Because I am in control. You see, I've always had this anxiety about rejection. And whenever I feel rejection or perceive rejection, I try to do things to try and keep from being rejected. So when you're in the congregation and you're sitting there before church and you're talking to people, you go up to someone, hey, how you doing? They're like, fine, thanks. And you know that they don't want to talk to you. Honestly, it hurts my feelings. And when I feel that rejection, it wounds me more than it should. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit it to you. But everybody wants to talk to the guy in the pulpit.
Right.
Everybody wants to listen to every word that comes out of the mouth of the guy in the pulpit. When you're done preaching, everyone wants to talk to the guy who is in the pulpit.
There's a line of people waiting to talk to you.
Exactly. They want to talk to you. They want to meet you. They want to shake your hand. That's how insecure I am. And so to control my environment, preaching helps me do that.
Right. You know, I think for a lot of us, Chris, and you can speak to this too, our work, right? We can find so much identity in our work.
Totally.
I have. You know, where you get your attaboys, your affirmation, hey, you did a great job, you get a promotion, you get a bonus, whatever it is, but you don't have strings really attached to it either, and people don't have to really know who you are. So whatever veneer you have, whatever mask you're putting on, that's acceptable, because you know what, at the workplace, by and large, everybody else has their mask on too. We go about our happy business doing our thing. And so, but you're not real. You're not really getting the real happiness that our hearts really need and want.
You don't open up to people at work about your deepest, most personal problems, your greatest sins, the things that are the most humiliating and that you struggle with. You put your best foot forward, you work really, really hard, people feel really, really good about you, and they say all kinds of great things about you. When you get home, your wife says, oh, hey, did you take out the trash today?
Right.
And you're brought down to earth. Oh, I guess I'm not that special after all.
But I'm going to tell you, I think for at least some people, you can probably identify with this too. If you have opened up at work and you've become a little bit more real in a situation, that might have been the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's been maybe the case with people in churches.
Yeah.
Where it was the beginning of the end. Because there's this masquerade in the plastic steeple that's going on where we're not really being real, Chris.
Right.
And we feel like we're the only ones suffering with all these issues and baggage and stuff like that. So everybody's got their baggage in there on Sunday morning, and nobody's talking about it.
I'm talking to a guy, I'll call him John, and John, you know who you are. And he's not doing this. He's been unhappy for years and years and years. He's taken off the mask, and he's saying, hey, how you doing? He goes, I'm not doing well. Do you have some time to sit and talk? And they're like, no, I've got stuff I got to do. And the few that he's been able to trap and get to sit down, he's poured out his heart to them. And all he has found is rejection. He doesn't have that shiny plastic smile on his face, and so people don't really want to talk to him anymore. People don't sit in the same pew with him anymore at church because he's got problems. What's different about John is that he's honest about it, and the rest of us really aren't.
You know what, folks? Life is not a masquerade party. God's not calling us to hide behind the mask. We're talking to you today. We're not talking to the guy next to you. We're not talking to somebody who, oh, I wish he would hear this podcast. We are talking to you.
To you.
And we're talking to ourselves. This is serious business. And this is something that we're dealing with in our own hearts, Chris. I mean, we're in it with you.
But why are we doing this? This series is about seeking the heart of God. If you are one who has struggled to find an intimacy in your walk with Christ, and you don't know why. You don't have it. Why you don't have the faith and the relationship that you see in other people or that you've read about in other people. It could be right here. Because remember what we said a few weeks ago, without trust, there is no love. There can't be. There can't be real love without trust. And as long as you are trying to manage your circumstances and manage your pain, you're saying, God, I can't trust you with that pain. So I'm going to lie, manipulate, whatever I have to do to manage my circumstances. To the extent that you do that, you aren't loving God. To the extent that you're doing that, you're saying, you know what, I can be in control of my circumstances. I am self-sufficient. I am the master of my own fate, the master of my own destiny. To the extent that you do that, you're not loving God. And because you're not letting people into your life, and because you're not letting other people into yours, you're not loving them either. And beloved, at the end of the day, that's why we're here. We're here to love God and love others. And if we get this wrong, we won't do either of those things. So as long as you're busy focusing on the external things that people see, and you're not dealing with your heart, you will never truly love God, and you will never love your neighbor as yourself. You will never fulfill the two purposes for your existence. Thank you for tuning in, my friends, and I'll talk to you next week.
We'll see you soon.